We really appreciate it. We love the more engagement, the better, whether you have experience with this or not. A firm believer in
Oh,
sharing
I just hit
of
something. Oh, I
what
unchecked
our
for some
questions
reason.
are and what our
Let me go
experiences
see.
are just rounds us out real well. So why don't I'm going to hand it over to Becky and Clay. Clay Lewis is with InterExchange, as is Becky Davis. As I had mentioned in the invite, they are just two of a number of sponsors that we regularly see in the county, even though there are technically close to 20 that have placed students in the county, at any given year. But I really appreciate the support and the guidance that both Clay and Becky have provided. They've been really instrumental in helping us be more vocal with our legislators and dealing with the administration. We've been invited into calls with the White House at various times, as well as visitations with senators, just to make sure that they understand how important this program is to our local economy, and that we really are working hard to be really ideal partners in the whole program, which is it is a cultural exchange program that's very, very important. And I can let Clay and Becky elaborate on that further. So I'll pass the torch from there. But of course, at any time, if there's something that I can help you with, or you have questions about the program or resources, don't ever hesitate to reach out to me, and I can help connect you with the right person. So Clay, if you want to take it from there, we'll start our show.
Awesome. Thank you, Phil. And Becky, you can start us off here.
Sounds good. Again, I want to say thanks to Phil for putting this together. And so today my name is Becky Davis. I'm the regional account manager for your area. I know so many of you so well, I forget that we're not all family and just having a good time hanging out here. But so if you're working with InterExchange, you'll be working directly with me to help match with participants. And then we also have Clay Lewis, who's our employer and community engagement manager. So today we're going to be talking about Bridge USA Summer Work and Travel, a bit of an overview for the last couple of years, what's been happening, and then a bit about how to become a host employer. So a little bit about InterExchange. We are a non-for-profit business. We've been around for about 50 years, and our mission is promoting cross-cultural awareness through exchange programs. We have worked with over 90 countries over the years, and we are designated by the United States Department of State as a visa sponsor. Next slide, please. So the primary purpose of the Work and Travel Bridge USA program is cultural exchange. It's a cultural exchange with a work component. The exchange visitors come to America for 3 to 4 months. They work, they travel, they learn about US culture while sharing their own. And a portion of their expenses is able to be defrayed by the ability to work in seasonal temporary jobs. And I'm going to hand it over to Clay, who's going to give a program outlook, what's happened in the past couple of years and what we anticipate happening.
Thanks, Becky, and thank you, Phil. And it's great to see some familiar faces. I haven't been up to Door County, obviously, since the pandemic started, but one of my favorite regions to visit. So it's great to see some familiar faces and some new faces as well. I'm going to talk just a little bit kind of about a broad overlook of kind of where the program stands right now, some of the recent developments, some advocacy developments, and kind of what to expect for next summer with the information we have now. I think as many of you guys are aware, these past 2 summers have presented some unique challenges to the program and to our world as a whole. Our overseas consulates and the embassies have been operating at a very limited capacity, as well as being under local COVID restrictions in the countries that they're operating. This has caused some significant backlogs to summer work travel visa appointments last summer and previous winter as well. We are working, with our partners at the State Department and U.S. consulates overseas to ensure that as many participants as possible are able to schedule their visa interviews. We've seen some positive developments so far. I think some of you guys on the call might be familiar with kind of both seasons of the program. We have a very strong summer season, which is when most of the students go up to Door County, but there's also a very robust winter program with students from, Peru, Argentina, Chile, and a handful of other countries that typically go to more winter destinations. A lot go to Wisconsin Dells in the winter, a lot of the ski resorts around Colorado and New Hampshire and Vermont. Winter students have been getting their visas this winter, which is a very good positive development. It's not at 100%, but it's looking very good for this winter, and a lot of students are getting their visas. The top winter sending countries have been processing visas. So we're very hopeful for next summer that this trend is going to continue for next summer as well. There have been some recent changes in entry requirements, and as well as the lifting of the region-specific travel bans, which is another very positive development for the program. Of course, as everyone knows, the administration is tightening restrictions for entry, and there has been a vaccination requirement for all incoming international travelers, with very few exceptions. This went into effect November 8th. It currently applies to our winter program participants that are, arriving, in December and into January, as well as, as it stands now for next summer's program. In addition to the vaccine requirement, there's a requirement for incoming travelers to receive a viral COVID test no more than 1 day before they travel. Previously, this requirement was set at 3 days, and changes were announced just a few hours ago by President Biden. So this is a very new update, and as we learn more, we're going to be sure to share, information with you all. So as of now, there is a vaccine requirement and a COVID viral test requirement of 1 day in order to travel, as
So,
well as the mask
Clay,
mandate. Yes.
Is that a PCR test?
Yes, I believe that's a PCR test. Yeah.
Okay.
And then here you guys will see some CDC recommendations and guidelines. I'm not going to go into all of them. As Becky mentioned, we're happy to share this presentation afterwards, and these links, will be on it so everybody can browse those. We share with our participants and our employers, all of this information. Obviously, this age, things change very rapidly. So we encourage, all of our host employers and students to keep monitoring the CDC website for the most up-to-date information. And, we'll keep, communicating when there are relevant changes that affect the program. So, but you will see here some of the recommendations for the students that are going to be coming in, as it pertains to, travel and arrival and, remaining safe while they're here on their programs. It's important now more than ever, as Phil mentioned, to ensure that our elected leadership knows the importance and the value of this program to your community, to Door County, and greater Wisconsin as well. Many of you guys I know participated in the Alliance for International Exchange's host impact survey, and thank you guys very much for those that did. Insights and data gleaned from that are going to be instrumental in future meetings with the State Department and with congressional leaders. I want to give a shout out to Phil and Destination Door County, as well as Jewel with Rowley's Bay, for their recent advocacy work and engaging Senator Baldwin's office. All of these efforts, all of these virtual, congressional meetings and meetings with your elected officials are very valuable. They're here to listen to you guys as constituents. And there's going to be more initiatives coming up, and we encourage everyone to take part. I know we have some folks from InterExchange on the call as well, and shout out to their advocacy work. They've also been, a very critical partner in this fight. We're all in this together. We all want to see this program succeed for Door County and, across the country.
And Clay, if I can just add, I want each of you to know how important your voice is in these issues. there's I really appreciate the collaboration in pulling everybody together and for our ability to speak on behalf of the community. But your individual voices ring very loudly when it comes to our elected officials, and it always amazes me those things that we take for granted as of course the J1s are really important here. That isn't always the case in other communities, and oftentimes just that the time that you take, whether it's to send them a note or to give them a call, to share your story of how important it is, makes all the difference in the world, because their other constituents don't see it as important. Sometimes they feel like they're doing their best job by um, quote unquote protecting American jobs and restricting internationals from coming, not realizing the negative impact that restricting international students has on employing Americans. So do not hesitate. If you ever have any question of, I don't know how to go about this or whatever, please give me a call. I can let you know. But one thing I can tell you for sure, you'll be really grateful you did. And it's very rewarding to be heard. So don't hesitate to call or write. But one last point is, you don't have to necessarily talk to the representative themselves. I have very often found that if you are able to speak to one of the office administrators and whatnot for any of the legislators, they do a really great job at taking careful notes and then portraying that to their boss. And so in many ways, I feel like it's even heard a little bit more if you're able to speak to an aide and share your point of view. So enough on that. Let me know if I can help.
Thank you, Phil. All very good points. Constituent voices are who our elected leaders listen to, and so all of your voices are very key in these discussions. We've, as I mentioned earlier, we have seen some very positive developments in all of the advocacy and engagement work that's happened. Processing of winter visas is happening currently. We're hoping this trend is going to continue as embassies in some work travel countries begin processing visas, which is happening now and shortly. So, we're hoping these trends are going to continue on, and, there may be more advocacy work needed. We're keeping in touch with all of the embassies and the State Department and monitoring this very closely, and we'll be sure also to share with Phil and you all any updates that we hear that are coming out. I do want to share one other positive development, which is that 2 key positions in the State Department that are very, very important to Bridge USA programs have now been filled and confirmed. So we look forward to working with Lee Satterfield, who is the new Assistant Secretary of State for the Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs, as well as Nicole Elkton, the new Deputy Assistant Secretary for Private Sector Exchange. So both of these positions are very key in helping facilitate and run the Bridge USA program. So, those are another couple positive developments that have come out recently. With that, we've been asked, I know, to speak a little bit about, how you can become involved in the program and hire students, and kind of how that works for InterExchange. So I'll pass it off to Becky to take it from here.
Yeah, and I know some people here who have been hiring Bridge USA Exchange visitors for a long time, and there's a few new ones in the mix. So a few things to consider. The timeline. We are currently matching students and employers for summer 2020 as we speak. That timeline is important. Once you would match with a student and they're hired, the sponsor then gives the participant, the DS 2019 form. This is a form that they need to take to their US embassy or consulate in their home country to get their visa. And then once they get their visa, they can get a flight to America. And this is something, when we talk about our online matching system, you can follow this process all the way through. So I'll hit on that a little bit more. But the positions, the requirements for the positions are that they must be seasonal, they cannot displace American workers, and the pay must be equal or commensurate to their US counterparts. And I know in Door County, we've all had the talks about it. There's been articles about it. Housing is an issue. But it is a critical component to the program. So we are asking our hosts to provide housing or assist in setting it up. And this doesn't mean that you have to own the housing. It can look a lot of different ways. Some people will rent out a house for the summer. In some places, there's dorms. I know the vast majority of people in Door County do own their own housing, or they're on site. They take out a room, that kind of a thing. But it is critical that we know that the students have safe and affordable housing when they're on their program anywhere in the US. Another real important thing is that always from the beginning of the process until the student leaves, keep in direct contact with the sponsor, whether it's about a work issue or if they had some trouble with Social Security, or they may be feeling a little bit homesick, or in case of an emergency. You definitely want to maintain that direct contact with sponsors. If for some reason you don't know who a sponsor is, say it's a kid with a second job, or you can always look at the DS 2019 form. And I believe Phil also has a list of names and phone numbers of all the sponsors. So how does InterExchange work and assist our host employers? Number one, you'll have a dedicated account manager, which is me. We have a really great online matching system, which I'm going to talk more about in the next slide. And again, we have the 24-hour customer service hotline for you and our participants, that they can always be in contact with somebody from InterExchange. So we have at InterExchange what we call the InterExchange online matching system. And this system allows you as the host employer to create your host employer profile, upload photos of your housing, your business, past J-1 students having a good time. And then this is also where you search and match with your participants. And then after that you hire them, this is where you can go in and see real-time updates to visa status, whether they have an interview, it's been issued, and then their flight information into the country. So, and then on the flip side, how we assist our participants is, number one, we really do try to work to keep the program affordable. As a not-for-profit, we really strive to keep it within the realm of possibility for the students. Prior to the participants coming here, we give a really good overall orientation. It's been changing rapidly over the last couple of years with all the changes and health and safety and that kind of a thing. Again, we provide the program documents that we talked about, the DS 2019 forms. We ensure that all participants have accident and sickness insurance. Again, we mentioned the 24-hour customer support hotline. And one of the things that I think we all missed the most during the last couple of years is our cultural events and site visits. Looking forward to getting out and doing those again this year, but I'm not sure if Warren is on the line, but I want to give a big shout out to the Bridges of Door County. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's a number of the local churches, faith-based organizations, and their volunteers all come together to put on events and English classes throughout the summer for the participants. And it is actually a big draw for our participants who come to Door County. They hear about it. It allows, because Door County is spread out, as you know, so it allows all of the students, and I believe in 2019, we had over 400 to get together and meet people from their home countries and other countries as well. So a big thanks to the Bridges of Door County. And then here are some other resources that if you want to have the presentation, Phil can send it to you. First is our student availability list. This is a list of countries and their dates. And all the countries' dates are designated by the universities in their home countries. So for instance, Colombia arrives May 1st, where some other countries don't arrive till July 1st. So you can sort of search through there and filter on dates in our online matching app as well. And then especially for new employers, our host employer handbook is a great resource. It goes over all kinds of topics: taxes, Social Security, how to create cultural exchange opportunities, all of that kind of a thing. So I'd like to, at this point in time, Clay, if you don't have anything to add, to open up the floor to questions.
Just want to give one more shout out to Phil for his work organizing all the Social Security meetings too. That's been, critical up in Door County, and seeing the community come together to try to solve those problems. As Becky said, is a real big draw for students wanting to come to Door County. The more the community comes together to kind of make the program stronger, that word travels quick around the students' home countries, and it becomes a draw, which is why I think Door County has significantly grown its work and travel program over the past 10 years.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't recognize, or it doesn't become immediately obvious that because we're, for lack of a better word, we are in the flyover zone. When you're talking about students from overseas, they often are dreaming about going to New York and to California, often the same weekend. And so making sure that we're doing what we can to give them a quality experience is really, really important. Fortunately, our community really works together really well to create a lot of those cultural programs that make it very rewarding. And like Clay mentioned, it does have a lot to do with the word of mouth, that the satisfaction is very high, and that's what has really helped us cultivate, attract more and more of the J-1 students. They are, they're not forced to come to Door County by any means. They are attracted by what we have to offer, and oftentimes that has to do with what their friends have experienced. So making sure that we're doing our very best, working together, finding new ways to help build those programs, and we as employers making sure that we're supporting like the Bridges friendship program out of Sister Bay, finding out what their needs are. They often are, will feed 250, 300 kids on an evening for those events, and it's a big deal. And currently they're doing all that. That's coming out of their pockets. And I know as a business community, we couldn't do it without them. They are key to our success. So making sure that we're reaching out to them to find out where could we help. You might be amazed that something very simple for you to help with could make all the difference in the world in how they're able to provide the programming. So keep that in mind. And one more thing about the Social Security sign-up day. I have stayed in contact with our representatives out of the Green Bay office to maintain a strong, healthy relationship there. That it has been a very tricky thing to do. The representatives that I work with directly have been super cooperative, and they have appreciated all that we've done to make it very efficient and well worth it for them to come up. But they do work under some very tight constraints that come down from the top, which can make it difficult. Currently, their offices are very restricted by the COVID protocol and limiting the number of students that they can see, etc. And because of those limitations, they weren't able to come up to Door County the last 2 years. I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer, but we are hoping that we can resume that program, but there isn't a guarantee there. Just know that we are, this is something that I feel very strongly about. I think it makes a very positive impression on the students, but I also, I've received so much great feedback from all of you. I understand how important it is to you, so we will continue fighting for that.
Thanks, Bill. And yeah, we'd be happy to open it up to questions if anybody has questions or comments. And obviously we can take questions, after this. Our contact information is up there. Feel free to reach out or reach out through Phil, and I'd be happy to share anything more.
Hey, Clay, a question that I often get has to do with like trying to figure out which sponsor to work with. InterExchange has been really, really helpful, as has Intrax and Greenheart and such. Is there something that employers should be looking for with a sponsor in their selection, or is it are you able to help them in guiding them to meet their needs?
I mean, I think, work with somebody that you think, will be a good partner for your business, communicates well, make sure to keep you up to date on, developments. I think there's different fits for every business. So, also kind of on that note, diversify. You can work with more than one sponsor. Then that's, welcome often. I think that's, often a prudent business practice too, to, work with more than one sponsor, if that makes sense as well. So,
it's not looked down upon to obviously to work with multiple sponsors. That's an okay thing.
Definitely not. I think do whatever makes sense for your business. Different sponsors also may have strengths in different countries, that, have dates that work better or worse for you. So, that might be a factor that, comes into play. As Becky mentioned, the students can come for a maximum of 4 months, but their dates are set by their university dates in the home countries. So, do whatever makes sense, I think, for your business. Our contact information is here, and I know you've shared InterExchange and some of the other sponsors that are Green Hearts and CIEE that are also actively involved up in Door County.
Yeah, when you talk about the being able to, for your students to be able to contact the sponsors, most sponsors have been very good about it, but I have feedback that I have received has definitely supported how important it is to have some of those personal touch points. I know that, like the sponsors that are on the call today, all of you have been very good about making site visits, coming up to see the students, having that touch point. I think the word that gets tossed around is it helps to alleviate the homesickness that often can compound the anxiety that a student is having. It may be their first time traveling overseas, and having somebody make sure that everything is okay, through the sponsor really makes a difference psychologically as well. So getting a feel for, who to work with is important. But I think my main reason for even having this program today is to reiterate the fact that there are a lot of choices, and there aren't necessarily bad choices. When you go on the J-1 site from the U.S. State Department, you're going to see that there are, close to 40. I think there are 38 right now listed, 38 sponsors that are recognized by the State Department. And you can pick from any one of those. But the relationship is really what's key there, because you are, for lack of a better word, this is a little bit of a foster program or an adoption program. You're helping a student come here, and there's, you're all working together to make sure that it's a successful program. And with having the right support in place makes it very, very easy. And obviously the inverse can be true too.
And to Becky's point that she made earlier, keeping in contact with your sponsor, whoever your sponsor is absolutely crucial. Problems arise throughout the summer. The closer contact you have and the students have, the easier it is to mediate, for your sponsor to mediate, any issues that come up. And also know that, every sponsor is required to have, 24-hour support in case of an emergency. If I think there's somewhere around 20 some sponsors that have at least one student up in Door County. So if you ever need to get in touch with your sponsor, you don't have that information, it's all on the State Department's website, their contact information. I believe Phil probably has the emergency list of, contacts for the sponsors as well. So make sure to get in touch, with your program sponsor if anything comes up.
I know a question comes up of, is there a cost or an upfront cost for an employer to register with a sponsor to become a host employer?
No, there is not.
Yeah, typically there's not a cost for the host employer. The students pay a fee to participate in the program, which they help offset, during their program here.
And although there aren't any costs, there are some responsibilities that come along with hosting, being a host employer. Granted, these are young adults, but they're young adults often away from home for the first time, and the language barrier. So we always say, treat them like you would like your kids or your grandkids to be treated on the same type of a program. They might need a little extra hand holding if they get sick and need to go to the doctor, or they just might be homesick and need a little a pep talk. So there are some extra responsibilities, ensuring that they have the safe housing, that they have safe and reliable transportation to and from work. I know sometimes that's been a bit of an issue on those dark, curvy roads in Door County at night, when they're riding their bicycles, and they've got a great bike safety program up there, which has come out of the bridges. So although there's no monetary cost, there are some extra responsibilities.
And as a cultural exchange, we want to make sure that you understand as an employer, you want to be supportive of those cultural moments of being able to share the American experience. And so it's not just a matter of really at no time, you really shouldn't be talking about the J-1 program as just an employer, a workforce resource, even though that's our benefit, that we need the workforce and the students need to work, and that's something really important. The key point to the threat to the program was for a few years there, it was work first, and the cultural components had fallen away, and we were really at risk of having the program eliminated altogether. And it was really through the efforts of trying to rebuild it, through examples like the Bridges program here in Door County has done such a great job. We've become really a prime example of how a community can do it right and how the program is supposed to work. Because ultimately, this is about making memories and about creating experiences that will carry these students on for the rest of their lives. There are amazing stories of J-1 students of what they have done with their life, and a lot of it influenced by that time that they were here in the U.S. We are the touch point of where we can dispel a lot of the misperceptions, because many countries, their only idea of what life in America is based on the news. And you know that when you watch the news, it's terrifying, and you would never live there. So giving them an inside view of this is how life is here. This is having those positive experiences, but knowing that as an employer, you want to, whether that's supporting the Bridges program so that they can create some of those fun cultural components, because we understand as employers, you are busy. Many of you are stretched very thin, but anticipating that there are going to be some moments when you want to do something fun with your students. There are so many amazing examples of employers who have made lifelong friendships. When we get together for our employer forum in the late winter, we get together and share ideas of what has been working, where we could be sharpening our skills a little bit, what we could be doing better, troubleshooting. And during that program, one of my favorite moments is just some of the sharing the great experience that have occurred. And I was amazed at the number of employers who have flown overseas to meet babies that were born, that their students that used to work for their business. People have gone over for weddings, for all kinds of different celebrations, because they really formed a familial bond with those students while they're here. They really became a part of their family. That's not going to be naturally the case for everybody, but just know that the potential is there. That you are. This is an experience that will be a part of their person for the rest of their life. So it can be really key, and it can be very satisfying, and it can also make it fun for you of having the addition of that person and having that perspective, and having that additional help that you do need. So it's a win-win on all cylinders. But it is important to remember that it's not just it's not just a place to pull workers out of the pond. This is there is a commitment there of helping make this a positive experience.
And Phil, I believe it is 1 in 3 world leaders were exchange
Yes.
participants at some point in time. So we like to say that, these participants come here and then they go back home as cultural ambassadors for the United States. So it really is a long-term effect. And Jewel, I think has probably gone back to the beach. She said earlier she was in Florida, but she's been doing the program for over 20 years, and she's had second generations. The father was here in the 90s and the kid came a couple years ago. And it really is a long-standing friendship and relationship that's built. So not to sound corny, but maybe enough of this, we can move a little more towards a better understanding of everybody and a little more love. So,
Right.
and I know that did sound corny, but
As it should.
I have a question. Can I ask?
Yes.
oh yes.
Yes.
Right. This will be the first year that Scallywags might be doing this. What is the sponsor? Are we gonna be the sponsor? Or are we the host employers? I'm kind of confused.
Good question. Yeah.
You're the host employer. So the sponsor would be designated by the U.S. Department of State for a J-1 visa. So InterExchange, Clay and I are sponsors. You can see Abigail and Stacy from Intrax are sponsors. So we are the business that facilitates all of the paperwork that allows this, we check all of the students' documents to make sure they're eligible for the program. We send them the paperwork so they can go get their visa at the embassy, get them here safely, provide insurance, and then you are the host employer.
Okay. And then how do we pick that? Do we just pick you, or like how would a business know who to pick? Like what?
Like we talked about earlier, there are over 38 J-1
Yeah.
visa sponsors. You can look on the Department of State website and just start calling and looking up and doing some research. I would be more than happy to have a phone call with you. I'm sure Stacy would too.
Okay.
We're all sponsors, but yet we all work together. So it's an interesting dynamic. I definitely would, look for a sponsor who's very communicative and responsive to you. If you send an email and it takes a week to get an answer back, they may not be the right one for you. So it really is sort of a personal fit. And as Clay said earlier, I don't think you need to just have one.
Yeah. And what I have found, as I've been investigating the program myself, it's been quite a few years now that I've been involved in some way in the support for the program. But here at Destination Door County, we are not involved with hiring students. So I'm learning a lot of this vicariously through all of you and just the interaction with the students. But what I found really a pleasant surprise, heartwarming really, is how collaborative, how cooperative the sponsors are. That, if you have a need and Becky doesn't, the students that they're working with are not really falling into the time frame that you need or other parameters, they're very quick to say, you know what, this sponsor is working with those students maybe in that time frame, or so they're more collaborative and less competitive. Each of them they have a little different angle, and I think you can glean some of that maybe from their website. A little, joking and not joking. There are times when I think you just paste a bunch of names on a twister spinner and just give it a good whirl and use that to pick your second sponsor. But a lot of it has to do with the time frame of when you're looking to have your students arrive, right, Becky, Clay? That is a parameter, and it's real. The stipulations of the program are very strict about when the students can be here and when they have to return. They are not allowed to return late for school. So it is a very tight prescription. And you'll see some employers, you'll notice, they have a lot of students that are from China or a lot of students from Chile or whatnot. Usually, almost always, it has to do with when those students arrive and how long they can stay before they go. So if you need help a little earlier in the season, then it's one country. If you're looking for a little mid-season or late season, that might be two other countries, just because of the way the schools designate their summer break, because that does dictate it. Does that help?
Sorry, I have a follow-up question. Can you have one sponsor And how many students can you have?
So you can definitely have more than one sponsor, and I think the number of students is based on the number of jobs that you have available. Also keeping in mind that, you know, students aren't supposed to displace any US workers, you know, at any work site. So, you know, obviously, you know, make sure to hire any local, you know, workers and retain any local workers that are working for your business. But, you know, that number is based on more the number of positions that you have available, as well as the hours that you have available per position. You know, we ask that students, you know, are guaranteed an average of about 32 hours per week. And we understand that that's, you know, an average over the course of the season. There's going to be, you know, slow weeks and busy weeks, you know, slow parts of the season, busy parts of the season. But, you know, to make sure that the students do have access to enough hours to be able to, you know, support themselves, pay rent, you know, save up some money for their travels. You know, one key component of the program, you know, is that after the work portion of their program, you know, while they're, you know, with you up in Door County, they have up to a month to travel around the US. You know, again, they have to be back for their university back home, but they do have up to a month to travel around the US. So a lot of students are saving up for their travel portion of their program. So making sure that they have enough hours, you know, and that you're not, you know, hiring too many to be able to, you know, actually sustain those positions, I think is what it comes down to. Different sponsors may have limits, you know, and so again, that, you know, just, you know, work with your sponsor or sponsors, you know, to figure out the best fit and how many that you can offer.
Okay.
And a lot of that will hinge too on how much housing you have available. And
And
so
that-
you'll also have to look at your local community codes. I know in the Dells, it's like no more than 6 people unrelated can live in one house. It might be different in every township there. So, but it, you know, we've had some issues in other parts of the country where we actually had to take students out of housing because it was overcrowded and not really fit housing.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but many of the students are, because they're in college, many of them are used to more of a dormitory living.
Yeah.
So, you know, I have often found it's a little more difficult to find, you know, adult employees that are open to sharing a space with somebody else. They can, that's okay. But a lot of the college students are just used to that. Yeah, of course, none of this should be a surprise to the students. You have to be upfront when you're doing your job. You want to make your job offer as enticing so that they pick you as opposed to another employer or even another area. So you want to bundle that together and say, this is what it is, and making sure that you have the decent housing. But most students have no qualm about, you know, shared living facilities as long as they have the privacy that they need and it's set up appropriate. On that same vein, the question about housing cost.
Yeah.
Becky, Clay, do you want to address that? Go ahead. I'll bite my tongue for a second.
It's really sort of all over the board. I have some employers who offer free housing or a very minimal $25 a week with a deposit just because they may be in a more rural area and that's what they do to make their jobs look more attractive. Now, 20 states currently have a $15 an hour minimum wage. On those states on the East Coast, these kids are paying $125 to $150 a week for housing.
Wow.
In the Dells, Stacy, correct me if I'm wrong, is Hiawatha still at 95?
It went up to 100 this year.
It went up to 100 this year. But in Door County, and Stacy, you might want to chime in too, it's usually more 50 to like 80, 85. That's what I'm seeing in the Door County area.
So
Yeah,
we can
agree
charge
with
them
that.
housing? Sorry.
No, repeat that again. It cut out.
We can charge them for housing?
Yes.
Oh,
They expect
This-
to pay some kind of a rent and a deposit.
Okay.
So if you've paid a deposit on something, you're probably more likely to take care of it.
Yeah.
Then
And it also depends on, what's included in the housing, or utilities included, other, this, how many students are sharing the housing and all of that.
Okay.
So there's a lot of factors that come into, I guess, the cost of the housing. And as Becky said, it's the overall kind of package of, what the job offer and, has to offer the students that's going to attract, the students to the job and to the area. And to Phil's point, I think too, the transparency is key in, making sure that, everyone is satisfied, with their program in the summer. Be as upfront as possible when you're working with your sponsor on job offers and, housing descriptions and descriptions of, the area and the job. Be very transparent and honest, with the students, with the, applicants. That's going to help set the right expectations for them when they're coming on their program, and that'll, go a long way to having a smooth and successful summer.
Nothing happens in a
50
vacuum. So if it's a negative experience, negative experiences get a lot of traction. So you don't want to be a part of that. You want to make sure everything is upfront.
Okay, I have one more question regarding housing. What about RVs? Is that okay?
yes, I have had some people, but it can't be sort of an RV parked in the middle of a field. You have to have water
Yeah,
hooked
and like-
up and,
okay.
but I do have some people in Door County who actually work in one of the campgrounds and they
Okay.
stay in the RV, so they have access to, the showers and the laundry facility and the break
Okay.
room and that kind of a thing.
Okay.
It would definitely be something for me. I would want to see some pictures and
Yeah.
see like where it was located at. Like I said, once again, it can't be in the middle of a field where they're hauling in water type of a thing,
Yes.
but
And
if
it
it's in-
has to meet all local codes and regulations too.
Okay.
Can I just
Well,
say something? So yeah, I know Bailey's Harbor. We own a coffee shop in Bailey's Harbor, Bearded Heart Coffee. I also have a surf shop. And the town is coming down because a lot of people are just putting people in RVs in the town. And you're limited to camping for 30 days a year. So they're
Mhm.
coming down on that, which I understand. We also have a school, like an old school bus renovated to an RV that we keep at a campground. And we house people in there. But again, $50 to $85 a week is insanely cheap.
Yes. Yeah.
Like personally, we just bought a house this year for employee housing. I mean, that wouldn't even cover a fourth or a third of my mortgage payments.
Mm.
Then you got internet, electric,
Mhm.
everything else. That seems like, I mean, I know a business in Bailey's Harbor that houses J-1s, and they're paying minimum 100 a week, and then there's 2 or 3 in a bedroom.
yeah,
And that's a part of the offer. Yeah.
yeah, and you're never really going to make money on the housing.
Yeah.
It's usually for most employers, it's at best a break even. And it's sort of part of having the students and being able to have the workers.
I mean,
But
I
we don't
understand
set-
that, but
we don't
that
set
I
the-
wouldn't
we don't
even
set
be
the housing
making money.
costs.
I'd be like losing drastically.
Well, and I often talk with people at hotels about, maybe you need to take one of your rooms out of commission, and sometimes they're like, I can't afford it. And then, well, can you afford not to have the employees? So it
Yeah.
is sort of an individual business decision as to if that's worth it for you.
Okay.
This is Lauren from the Fireside Restaurant in Big Easy in Egg Harbor. And I had a question about this in regards to, do you guys enforce anything like this? I mean, we get students every year that want to move in the middle because their housing is so bad or their treatment is so bad, or they get their paychecks and they're amazed at what they see gets taken out of their checks and it isn't explained to them clearly. And until this last year, we didn't have housing to just kind of scoop those kids up, for lack of a better term.
Mhm.
Do you guys follow up with that? And do you?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. And we keep record of that every year as to, students' satisfaction with the job, housing, all of those issues. You know, it's this ultimately the sponsor's responsibility to ensure each of their participants' health, safety, and welfare. And that includes housing and making sure that housing meets all applicable codes and regulations and is safe and affordable for the students. If it's not, it's our responsibility as a sponsor to assist the students and make sure they are safe and in suitable housing and have suitable transportation. And ultimately, if students aren't in a situation that's safe or good for their health or safety or welfare, we will assist the students in finding, either alternate housing in the same area, or if need be, replace the student in a different area where we do have, housing and jobs available. And that does happen every summer. We like to avoid that because, students usually choose an area based on, their desire to go to that area. But, ultimately we do, ensure their health and safety and will work with them to find something suitable if there are any issues.
And last year we ran into a situation where there were 3 kids and 2 were ready to make the jump. I'd made them their offers. I had talked to the host company. I had done everything. And then the kids were told that their visas renewal or reissuance of their visas was going to be in danger if they jumped jobs. And I just feel like it's very, very, very important, like you said at the very beginning, to treat these kids as if they're our own or our own grandchildren in another country. And those are the type of employers that I have a really, really, really hard time with. And I hear what you're saying, but I feel like it's year after year after year, it's the same employers that I'm getting the complaints about.
I mean, if there are repeated issues, I think you can feel free to give a call to the student sponsor if you didn't, already. And this goes for anybody on the call, if you're not getting responses from a student sponsor, and whether they're students working for you or, students working for, someone else, their sponsor is, responsible for their health and safety. And that goes for all sponsors. So if they're unreachable or are not, dealing with a situation that, could impact their health and safety, feel free to reach out to the State Department. They have a helpline. It's J-1 visas at state.gov. And that is their emergency email address, and on their website, j1visas.state.gov. There's also a hotline phone number to call, a 1-800 number to call too, that's monitored constantly. So, if a sponsor is unresponsive, feel free to, reach out to the State Department. They'll reach out to that sponsor and come up with a resolution.
You can always contact me too, just to throw a flag up and say, hey, Phil, I'm having a problem, or the student is having a problem. We want to get that resolved. I don't want to overlook, Colin, you had a question. How can we help you?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, my name's Colin. I run a new business and it'll be in housekeeping will be my need. I got to know a few Bulgarian students over the last couple of years, so understood things from their perspective a little bit. In housekeeping, of course, what I would need is people to work between checkout time and check-in time. So it's, 10:30 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon, which is only a fixed period of time, 4 hours, maybe 4.5 hours. So the total number of hours in a week is perhaps a maximum, say 28 hours. The people I got to know were doing morning shifts at restaurants, 7 a.m. to 1 p.m., and then maybe an evening shift. How do I find, or how do I advertise, or can I team up with some other employer to find people who can do what I need, but then can get some high earning job in an evening restaurant, an upmarket restaurant, make up the rest of the income that they need? I'm not sure I could find someone just to do my work because it's not enough employment.
Well, we
That's
have
a
a
great-
second jobs list that people can sign up for. So once kids got into Door County, and a good way to do that is to talk with some of the other restaurants and places around and just tell them, hey, if you've got any students who are looking to pick up some extra hours, send them my way. We do require a minimum of 32 hours a week to be a primary host employer. But so, yeah, I think the second jobbers are the way to go for you. And they sort of fit in between those restaurant shifts and the evenings at, the supper clubs and that kind of a thing. So that's something that we can put you on a second job list where kids get to Door County and they can search what's in Door County, as well as networking with your, fellow business owners in Door County.
If
Yeah.
not, Colin, I'm more than interested.
Okay.
We own a coffee shop. I also
All right.
have 4 Airbnbs and a surf shop, and I also need like people just helping out. So let me know.
Yeah.
So
I would-
the second job market is not, usually those employers are not the ones providing the accommodation. They're the ones kind of picking up the scraps. But presumably that only happens after students arrive here. Is there any security I could get or anything I could do to make sure that I know that I have staff?
I mean, I think your best bet would be to, also as Becky said, network with some other businesses in the area. We've seen some really great partnerships come out, especially if, one business has a, clearly first shift need and one business has a second shift need, that have come out and, they can put on the job offers. Hey, we know other businesses in the area that, have additional hours, that are available and that, can work very well.
That one of the key factors has to do with transportation. So oftentimes starting around your immediate business and then circling out from there to find out who the other employers are. I am not given a list. I have tried to ask the State Department for a list. Oftentimes it has to do with, the information privacy, etc. So the information that I get has to do with just whoever I can get the attention of that will tell me. But I think I'll work with Morgan to, if we can create a potential, a list of employers that are interested in secondary. I can give you an example. Well, I don't want to speak for somebody else, but I know of a couple examples of where a lodging member has made a pact with a restaurant member, and the two of them, knowing that they have different needs, the one as the primary, they kind of set the rules and say, look, as the primary employer, this is what my expectations are for the student's needs. And the secondary employer takes a more submissive approach of, I can help them with additional employment with the understanding that you are the primary employer and the hours that you designate, I won't step on your hours. That's what they cooperate between the two of them, and works very slick. Correct me if I'm wrong, but most students who participate in the J-1 or J-1 programs are individuals that would normally not have the means to travel. That many of them are students who are interested in traveling abroad, but they don't have the luxury of just packing their steamer trunks and heading to America. So they know that in order to do this, they need to come and work hard. And it's pretty rare to find an international student who isn't interested in additional hours. In fact, you almost have to hold them back of saying, you cannot work like a maniac. They are not allowed to work more than 40 hours at their primary, correct?
That's not correct. They can work overtime.
Okay, they can do overtime. Okay.
But
oftentimes there are.
Some sponsors do have limits on the number of hours, that they can work. We don't want students to be, to not have time to, socialize and get out to see the area. But I think, Phil, your point is spot on that, there are always students looking for second jobs. You can reach out to, multiple sponsors too, and let them all know that you have, jobs available so that they can keep you on all of their lists, which will help. One, I guess, compliance regulatory thing I want to mention since we're talking about this, any students that do come to any of your businesses looking for a second job, just know that each job has to be vetted and approved by their visa sponsor before they begin working. So Make sure if a student comes and, and you might have students just knocking on your door saying, hey, I'm looking for a second job. Any students that you do want to hire, make sure to contact their visa sponsor. As Becky said, each student has a DS 2019 form that's issued by their visa sponsor. It's their work authorization, part of their work authorization. And on that form, there's their visa sponsor's phone number. So if they, for some reason, forget it, it is on that form. So make sure to contact their visa sponsor. Every sponsor has a different process to go through to vet and confirm the job. So just make sure to contact the visa sponsor before they start working.
I have a follow-up question. How do restaurants, because I haven't seen the adverts or the kind of the profiles of restaurants, how do they advertise the salaries? I read that it has to be an hourly rate, but with restaurants, including tips and things like that in their rates, how do restaurants do that? In contrast with businesses like mine, accommodation, where there'd be a fixed rate. What is attractive to students? What kind of range are we talking about?
Well, like I said, 20 states have a $15 an hour minimum wage. And these students who go into our online matching app see jobs all over the country. So Door County is in direct competition with Cape Cod and Santa Cruz and all of those other places that aren't flyovers. But in our matching app, we have job listings where you have the hourly wage and then you have a place to put tipped or not, or sometimes tipped. So
yeah, you can definitely.
In a hotel is different than being tipped in a restaurant, dipped as a housekeeper.
Oh,
So there
sure.
are different places that you can check.
And if you are putting down, tipped minimum wages and tipped wages in job offers, you can add additional descriptions on, what to expect and, what kind of compensation most staff expect to kind of, help, add some descriptions to that.
And the
It's a
more
fairly
information, the
accurate
better. I always use the example. I had a gal who got a job at a t-shirt shop, and she was very upset that at the end of the night, she was expected to wipe down the bathroom and vacuum and do some windows. So as detailed as you can be, it really is all about expectations.
It really is. And remember that all of these students are employed at will. So they are not tied to your business if they are not satisfied or they feel that something was misrepresented. They're free to move on. They just have to complete the proper paperwork to make sure that the State Department knows where they are. So
and they have to get approved. They have to work with their sponsor and get approval before any changes are made.
Yeah, if you have a student who just says, hey, I'm leaving tomorrow and I'm going to New Jersey,
no.
You need to call the sponsor immediately. We need to know that. But Colin, I think what you might have been asking is what's the average housekeeping wage around there going now?
Well, I suppose so, but in part, but the other part is, for instance, if you work at one of the higher restaurants up here, you might be making 80 an hour. And if you work at Sister Bay Bowl or, I shouldn't say that, a less posh place, you might be making $10 an hour or 15, the minimum wage. How does that get presented by the employers? And is it really an accurate description? And how can my $30 an hour, $25 an hour compete with an $80 an hour restaurant?
I would say just personally, wage salary is not everything at a job. I for one work at a nonprofit, so I can say that for sure. But I think there's a lot that different jobs have to offer, and it's not always wage and salary, and students know that too. Sometimes it's, hey, my employer's really flexible with me on the, shifts that I'm working or when I come into the shift, if I'm going to be, 30 minutes late because I'm finishing a different shift, students want to work with employers that work with them, to make the program good. And, as Becky said, the cultural component, making sure the students feel welcomed and are supported, while they're there. Goes a long way. So it's not, the whole program isn't just about, salary and wage. There's a lot of different things I think that students look for. And they're savvy enough to know that it's not just about numbers. It's about, are you offering, I think, consistent shifts. Is it a sure bet, that, they get consistent shifts with your business versus, maybe a different business that might pay more, they're not getting consistent shifts. So, there's a lot that goes into that. And, being upfront about that, I think really helps.
Yeah, understood. Are the employer profiles and adverts, as you will, viewable through the sponsors' sites? So
For
each sponsor has
yes.
a site.
Yep.
Well, yeah, InterExchange has its own site. There is not one site for all sponsors and all jobs.
Okay.
But
And
so if you went into
different
our online
sponsors do it.
matching app,
Yeah,
the
different
students
sponsors
tend
do
to-
it different ways.
yeah.
So
So when students would look at your job in our online matching app, they would see all of your housing information, what you say you're going to do for cultural opportunities and events, your whole job description, photos of your housing, photos of your business. So we try to really, make it very transparent. This is where you're going to be living. This is what your bathroom is going to look like. This is how many people you will share it with. These are some people who were working there last year having a good time. We really try to get all that information out there because otherwise it's a whole lot of questions for everybody. But we really try to make it as transparent as possible for the students. And, some students may not want such a front-facing position where their English may not be quite as strong as, for example, some of the Bulgarians have excellent English. It might be somebody from Thailand or another country where they're really just starting to learn more English, where they're probably not going to get that higher wage an hour job. So we sort of have there's a fit for everybody.
I see. And as potential employers, are we able to see those profiles from
Yes.
other employers?
Yeah. You can't see the other employers' profiles, but then in turn, you see the participants' profiles.
Uh-huh.
You see a little video of them where they go to school, but no, we don't make other employers' job listings public.
I see.
And really,
So-
I'm not sure who does the audit per se, but I know really the key point is that if you were audited, that you are offering the prevailing wage that you would offer to an American that walked through your door. So it doesn't have to be at a premium, but you are positioning yourself in order to attract the students. I know our destination as a whole, we worked very hard to make it a very positive experience. And some of the feedback that I have read is that students are very excited about there's the quintessential Americana about Door County, that it's very relaxed, very safe, that it's a very beautiful place. Those are a lot of things that are weighing when, with another student who really does not want to be in more of an urban setting or, more of a hustle bustle or whatnot. So again, it really is, it's a complete package, what you have to offer, what you can promise. I know for the students, there is a value there of making sure that there isn't a bait and switch or that there is some dependability. The students put up a lot of money up front. It's very expensive for them to get their airfare, go through all of the different processes, buy the insurance. So they're putting a lot up front. So many of them are not only very dependent, they are exclusively dependent on being able to earn back that money, plus a little additional money so that they can go, do a little traveling before they go. So it is the whole picture, and it is possible. It's just a matter of being very upfront. That always seems to be the echoing sentiment of, if you're upfront, you can offer anything. You're just looking for the right fit there.
Yeah, it's a very strange time, of course, because prices and the salaries are so inflated because of the lack of demand. So what is normal, what is median is like out the window. I paid an absolute fortune for people to clean this summer, but that's not realistic. So
Yeah.
the baseline is anybody's guess.
Yeah, we had a lot of people last summer who came into some lower paying jobs that really hadn't started to escalate yet. And then the employer was mad when they went down the street for $4 more an hour. And so we've seen wages take a big hike going into this summer, because we don't want to have some kid come here, you do all the work, get them here. You're the sponsor. And then they're like, hey, I'm going to go down the road. We want it set up to be a win, from the beginning as much as possible.
I just want to say that we hire a lot of housekeepers at Parkwood Lodge, and a lot of times we can get students to come that have a little bit lower English skills, and we'll mark that on our, when we hire, and that helps because I think housekeeping is something that they see that you don't have to be front of the house. You're just in the background, and then you can slowly learn your English skills, and you're not having to talk to people and stuff. So that can be very helpful, for your hiring, how you mark that on your application. So.
I do want to say one other thing for people who are new and getting into the program. Us as sponsors are always here as a resource, as well as Phil. But one of your best resources is going to be your fellow business owners who've been doing the program for years. They're going to know some of the ins and outs from an employer viewpoint that the sponsors may not quite know, or, I did this in housing and it works better, that kind of a thing. So don't hesitate to use your fellow local businessmen as sounding boards for ideas and resources.
If there's an interest in that, please let me know. I'm more than happy to, at the bare minimum, do a Zoom call and do more a mentoring program of pulling together more, hey, the seasoned J-1 employers. We'd really like to come together to talk about what's involved with hiring, and I can also help with putting you in touch with some of the others. Boy, there are a lot of our J-1 employers who are very enthusiastic, and they love this program with such a passion, and they love the opportunity to talk about it and to share their expertise. So don't shy away from that. Do let me know if there's a need. I'll help rally to bring in the support for you. And if you feel, even though traditionally we've waited until probably March, April to do our employer forum to just brush up on exchanging, if we need to do something a little earlier, whether that's this month yet or in January, just to, do some of that mentoring, or if you want to do more one-on-one with somebody, bring it to my attention. I'm happy to help with any of that stuff. Also, the coordination with the secondary employers, I will probably put a shout out to see what kind of interest is out there, if just to identify who is interested, but really, because of that, the transportation key, like I said, circling around your business and working out and finding businesses that you suspect may have more employment opportunities at alternate times that don't conflict with your needs. That's really where the greatest success is creating that partnership. I think a good example that I feel pretty comfortable sharing is like Kim Jensen, who has Mojo Roses in Egg Harbor. She has a great collaboration with the Landmark Resort, knowing that their housekeepers have certain hours that they need, and they have a lot of them. But in the evening, they don't have many evening jobs that are available to that same crew. So, they make it known that Kim has availability in her restaurant, for restaurant work, and they work all this out and make it very easy for the students to engage and get the second job that they know they've coordinated, so that they're avoiding that unknown of stepping on each other's hours or whatnot, or making sure that it's coordinated in a way that is healthy for everybody involved. So it does work well. Anything else? This has been really great.
Talking, that's fantastic, Phil. Thank you. Talking about just timeline, and you mentioned kind of timing, and somebody at the beginning said that this is the time. When are students actually looking at these profiles and signing up and beginning the actual process? What kind of month does that begin for the summer season?
We started October 15th. We've already matched a significant number of participants, and they're being hired as soon as they're coming in. So we have more coming in on a daily rolling basis. And we're hopeful. In pre-COVID, after the first of the year and the holidays, we always had a bump. Kids decided, okay, I'll finally sign up in January. And we're hoping that's even a little more significant this year because of the travel bans. You know, the Schengen ban is gone. A lot of that, like Clay had said, it's not country specific. You just have to get a shot. The only place we're really sort of worried about is Russia, because the only shot they have currently is Sputnik, and that is not approved by the World Health Organization. And for InterExchange,
At this time, but that's, you know, again, everything's changing very rapidly. So, it's really hard to predict exactly where things are going to land, when the students are applying. But, students are applying on a rolling basis. So, this, you can kind of work around all of the different application timelines.
so it does not hurt to get in. So with InterExchange, you have to be vetted as a host. There's a whole list of questions from the State Department. We need to see business license, workers' comp, all that kind of a thing. I suggest doing that now with the few sponsors that you might want to work with, because even if they're second jobs, once they come in country, you're in your busy time, that's done. You just submit the job and you've already been vetted and approved as an employer. You're not now in the middle of June going, oh, I have to fill out this application and, my phone is ringing. So now is sort of the time to get in there and start looking around. And with anybody who's on here, I'm happy to have, another call, just us, that kind of a thing. I'm a firm believer. The only stupid question is the one you didn't ask. So don't hesitate. But yeah, get in there now. Now is the time. And we have more jobs than participants. With the labor shortages that have come about in the last couple of years, this program has become much more visible to a lot of people, and there's a lot more interest in it. A lot of the businesses aren't actually viable for the program, but there's a lot more interest.
We have been fortunate that it's a very clear, that we have a very clear need in our area. Oftentimes an area is challenged as, are you displacing American students? Becky or Clay, do the employers need to show any kind of proof, or is it done more as a whole region or destination about that you've done your due diligence with hiring Americans?
We have a question in our vetting section. How have you advertised to place Americans? And it'll be internet, jobs website, newspaper advertisement, TV ad, others. So there's a place where you tell us how you have gone about trying to find American workers.
Yeah, so that is assessed kind of in the vetting interview and in the vetting questionnaires that we have. Different sponsors might address it in different ways. As a whole, I think most Door County has a fairly clear seasonal need for the program, so I don't think it's ever really been an issue in Door County as it has in some other locations, but. Again, your sponsor that you're working with is gonna, go over, all of those vetting questions with you and make sure that the jobs are suitable, make sure that they meet all the regulations. That's part of the sponsor's job too, is to make sure that each and every job meets every, regulation, and, all the T's are crossed and I's are dotted on that front.
If an employer feels like they are better positioned as a secondary employer, not as a primary, is it possible for them to do that preliminary vetting with you right now or early on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
That's very good to know too. So you can, share that if you go through that process of answering the questions and letting them, just do that, that vetting, then you can promote it to other program members. If you find like you're looking for somebody, I can try to, I have my anecdotal list of J-1 employers that I've just compiled, people who have expressed interest. It doesn't mean that it's complete or current, but it's a pretty good list, and I'm happy to share, contact information of anybody that I might know in your area or within a reasonable area. What a quick question, and I don't see how far we're over time, but these have been great questions. Transportation. I know in some situations an employer has had an employee car, and that some students are able to drive. Is there a dictate on that of what how that works?
In our search,
Students,
when you look
oh,
for, sorry,
mhm.
go ahead, Clay.
I was just going to say, students aren't allowed to drive as part of their job if it requires a license. So that's a you know, a State Department regulation. Different sponsors may have different, you know, requirements on transportation and students' abilities to drive and how they vet that out. So that's kind of a sponsor specific, you know.
And what about personal time?
And you know, in personal time, a lot of our students do drive. They do. Some students get cars while they're here. You know, some students do drive, you know, employee cars, you know, in their personal time to go sightsee, and we don't have a problem with that. Again, you know, just chat with your sponsor to, you know, let them know, you know,
And
what
your insurance agent.
and your insurance agent
Yes.
to let them know. You know, what those expectations are. Some sponsors might have, you know, restrictions on if driving is required in order to get to your job. You know, for instance, we want to make sure that our students don't feel obligated to drive, you know, that they have, you know, a means of transportation to get to their job without driving, if, you know, that's, you know, if they're not comfortable with it.
And there is actually, when you're doing a search for our participants, there is a filter to look for somebody that has an international driver's license. And often, I've got a grocery store up in Door County, and they usually have 2 or 3 people who have their international driver's license, who they insure now to drive the company van. This can be used to maybe go to Walmart in Sturgeon Bay once a week, or if they have a pre-approved outing, they're all doing 2 on personal time, but they can't deliver groceries. So that's sort of how that has worked.
Any other questions? You haven't been able to stump us yet. There must be a good one out there.
And we'd be
guys,
happy
thank
to
you.
answer any questions,
Yeah.
you know, at another point as well.
Yeah, feel free to reach out to me with a telephone call or an email. And thank you guys so much for coming today. I'm really so excited about summer 2022. You have no idea.
Yeah. Oh, we have an idea. Because you're talking about normal summer, right? No. Because that's
But
what I
again,
put in
Phil,
for.
thanks for putting this together. And
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. And it's because of our participants and individuals coming forward to say, you know, hey, how do I do this? That really was the impetus for this. It doesn't have to be J-1 centric. I'm happy to do this program for any other questions that you have in the business community, or trying to sharpen a skill or trying to problem solve something. But thank you, Clay and Becky. I never have the ample words to tell you how much I appreciate the work, the support that you do for us, and the difference that you've made in our community. So thank you. I greatly appreciate it. And thank you to all of you who have participated today. Let me know if there's anything we can do for you or any feedback you have. I greatly appreciate it. Have a good one.
again,
Yes,
thank
thank
you.
you very much.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye. I've decided I end all my meetings like this now, even if they're in person.
Yes.
Just because. Have a good one, you guys. Bye.
Well, Phil, I can't wait for one of your famous hugs again soon. So
I have a whole bunch ready. So
bye-bye.
we'll talk to you later.